Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Silver Tempest, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. For today's video, we are going to be having a look at the best players in the North American region in the modern era of the Pokemon TCG. The methodology is based on championship points earned between 2017 and 2022, only within that Masters division. So this is going to be a little bit awkward, and you have the right to be frustrated if you have been an aged up senior or have missed a season here or there between this time period. But that is going to be what we're looking at today as our metric. There are plenty of other ways you can try and rank players, and there's been some decent discussion on Twitter about how else this data could be represented to make it as fair and as correct as possible, I guess you could say. But everything is going to have its own biases, strengths and weaknesses. I do feel like this is a fairly solid ranking between 2017 and 2022. It gives us a good timeline to base consistency of performances from. You can also, see growth of players within that time period and such. So I do still feel like this is a pretty solid metric. To even be considered within this, you had to have placed in the top 25 in at least one of the seasons between 2017 and 2022. I think that naturally doesn't really mean much. It essentially just gives me a starting point because it's very rare that someone hasn't ever hit the top 25 in any of the seasons and will then have more points than those who have at least once. But that's just anecdotal. If your totals match above anyone on today's list, let me know. But it's not something I've come across just yet. So we will have a look briefly at the top 30 through down to 11th, and then look at the top 10 in more detail. Some very recognizable players within this list. You'll certainly take note of Ross Cawthon at 27th, a second place world finisher, a top 4 worlds finisher. Just a really, really solid player. He's been around the block for a long time, and if we were making a sort of Mount Rushmore of Pokemon, I think you might even put Ross Cawthon on there just for his longevity in the game, and having played at such a high level for such a long period of time is really incredible. Similarly, we actually have a world champion on here in 12th spots with Igor Costa. This is, of course, all pre the modern era, and that's what this snapshot is looking at. So Igor would obliterate and, again, fly up this list if we took into consideration some of his previous world finishes. He's got a first, a second, a top 4, I believe, as well in the World Championships, all pre-2017. And even now, he's still sticking with the game and is in that 12th slot, which is really, really promising. There are a handful of players who weren't playing in all of the seasons among 2017 to 2022 as well. Schemanske is a name that sticks out, who is predominantly judging these days, but has still found their way onto this list. So very accomplished players, great stuff from all these guys. But let's get into some more detail as we jump in to number 10, which is Robb. Ian's also one of these players who could not even add up his 2017 year because he was actually still in the seniors division. So it's even more impressive that he makes it into the top 10 list here with 4,828 modern era CP, with limitless points of 321. Modern era earnings of $35,520, with some very promising career highlights here, including top 4 as well as top 16 placement at the EUIC with Drampagab, then jumped onto the Zoro pod train for a regional win in Collinsville, as well as a top 16 placement with the same deck. In Sao Paulo, played Buzzrock Tails, that deck that sort of never was. He did popularize a list for a short while, but it was not really well-lived, but he was one of the pioneers of that sort of archetype. Played Blacephalon to a regional win in Madison, regional win with Zoro Garb, a top 8 placement with ADP Zacian in Melbourne, the international championships, and more recently in 2022 was once again pioneering this sort of counterbox Arc Intel list with the Bird package and Raihans and all this other stuff going on. So Ian definitely is someone who's willing to go out there with decks, but can also innovate tried and trusted stuff, as you can see by the placements here. So definitely a solid deck builder. You can tell that they test a lot with the game, and definitely one to watch in future tournaments because, like I said, within the top 10 without even considering one whole year within the seniors division. In number 9, we have Jose Marrero with 5,110 modern era CP. 241 limitless points and 17k in earnings. Some of their standout performances include some Zoro placements, Zoro Pod top 8, as well as a Zoro Rock top 8 in 2018. A top 4 finish in Melbourne with Pika Rom. Then he found one of his favourite cards, the Rayquaza GX. So won an SPE with a Vika Ray, as well as a first place at Hartford Regionals with a Rayquaza sort of more turbo-based build, and also got a very nice top 32 placement at the World Championships in 2019 with Reshizard as well. In number 8, we have Zach Lesage. Zach is the only Canadian on the list outside of all these North American players. The rest are from the US, and Zach has 5,276 Modern Era CP with 193 limitless points and 24k in earnings. Has some great stand-up performances here, a top 32 placement in Sydney with Buzzgarb. Then he found Blacephalon. You may know Zach from his YouTube channel. He used to be known as the Lone Blown, and that's because he was one of the top placing Blacephalon players in the world, possibly the top, for the top 8 placement in Sao Paulo, a special event win in Mexico, then a top 32 in Melbourne, and then a regional win in Collinsville with Blacephalon Naganadel as well. So really found his calling with that deck. Continued to love the Welder shenanigans with a second place finish in Melbourne in 2020, as well as a Players' Cup 2 global final win in here as well with Pika Robb. Quite a different change of pace, but Zach's always one of these players at the top tables, and is part of a successful team now as well. Runs a YouTube channel, or is at least part of that, so definitely someone you'll see around, and not just at the tables, but also in terms of content. In number 7, we have Rahul Reddy. Rahul also has a YouTube channel that you can check out. For Modern Era CP, 5,394, limitless points of 314, Modern Era earnings of $19,750. Again, some really cool placements going on here. Lots of regional top 8 finishes and better. In Orlando, playing Dark Tina Garb, which was a great sort of ramp-style deck with some disruption in there. He has a real love of Vespiquen, and you can see it all started with this Anaheim top 8 placement, but played it in many other events ever since. In Collinsville, got a top 4 with Volcanion, went back to his tried and trusted Bees for a top 8 placement in Mexico City, then played Night March for a top 4 finish for San Jose in 2017, Memphis with a lovely top 8 placement with Zoro Rock, got a World Championships top 16 placement with Bennett Garb. Bit of a counter-style toolbox deck. I believe it also played the likes of Buzzwole and Rainbow Energies and such in the deck. So similar to like a Buzzgarb Shrine-style build, but with an added Psychic Tech for anti-Buzzwole Lycanroc. There's also a top 16 placement at Melbourne with Pika Rom, as well as an improvement on that in Berlin with a top 8 placement with Pika Rom, and at the World Championships at the end of 2019, a top 32 placement with, I believe this is Green's Reshizard as well. And again, Rahul, one of these players in one of the top teams in the US, so you'll constantly be seeing his name high up in the rankings. Can have some innovations of his own, like you can see the world's Bennett, even playing Greenzard with the likes of Martial Arts Dojo, does have his weaknesses, like sticking to Vespiquen for longer than possible, but still having some great results under his name despite all that. So yeah, that's Rahul at number 7. In number 6, we have Alex Schemanske with a Modern Era CP of 5,919, limitless points of 315, and Modern Era earnings of $31,000. It all starts in Orlando with that second place Valplume toolbox deck, where it was just different Ninja Boy counter-style attacking mons. Top 4 with a Primal Groudon. Goes into the first internationals with Guardi, and gets... actually, these are the second internationals in London, but this is a top 32 placement with Guardi. In Sydney, top 16 placement with Buzzrock. You can see also a Charlotte second place finish with the same deck. Top 4 finish with Zygarde Lycanroc, trying to stick away from those psychic counters. Went back to Buzz, this time with Garbodor for a top 32 finish in Columbus. Worlds 2018 with Buzzgarb Shrine, again a top 32 placement there. In Sao Paulo, top 8 placement with Buzzrock Tails. A special event win with Pika Rom in May 19. a second place at regionals with Turbo Zard, and a Players Cup 4 victory with Urshi Intel. I think this is one of the big breakout wins for Alex. You can see a lot of great placements on here, and apart from Panama special event win, the Players Cup was really one of the things that solidified Alex to finally break that wall of second and third and fourth places. So really impressive stuff. Urshi Intel, again, a pioneer of that deck, had some great inclusions in the 60, and also flew over to Warsaw to steal championship points from the Europeans and got himself a second place finish with Tina as well. So yeah, great results from Alex. He's coming on leaps and bounds in sort of the latter part of these last couple of years, and yeah, is really doing fantastic things. So expect him to stay among the top players. In at number 5, we have a tragic tale. Jimmy Pendarvis is unfortunately no longer with us. He passed away in 2021. But that's not to say that his accomplishments aren't remembered, and remembered by many people in the community. Everyone who knew him will know that he was a fierce competitor, very, very good at the game, has great logic, happy to argue with anyone on that front, no doubt, and was a friend to many players. I didn't know him personally all that well, met him only a few times, but by all accounts, he was a wonderful person. He managed to achieve 5,997 CP in the modern era with 488 limitless points, earned $52,250, and here are some of his best placements. Fort Wayne regional win with Yveltal Garbodor, a top 32 placement with Volcanion, a top 8 placement at the World Championships in 2017 with Espeon Garbodor, then went on to play some Buzzrock for the Sydney Internationals for a top 8 finish, as well as a top 16 finish in Sao Paulo with the very same deck. Then in Columbus for the NAIC, got a top 4 with Zoropod, and that Worlds also played Zoro Garbodor to a top 16 placement. Then went on a crazy string of regional wins, something I don't think we'll see again for a while. You can see in 2018, in October, a win with Zoro Toad, then a win in November with Guardi Swampert Tails. Then in December, the very next month, another regional win with Seismitoad Zoro again, sort of a controlling Zoroark variant. And it just carried on into March 19 with a Toronto first place finish with Night March. Jimmy, pretty much the king of the expanded era, you can see with those Zoro Toads and the Night March finish. And also his last accomplishment was a top 32 placement in Sao Paulo with that Naga Guzz checkmate style deck where you would activate your beast rings and stamp your opponent down quickly. A very, again, innovative deck. Jimmy, of course, part of the DDG team that was oh so successful during this modern era, something that, again, hasn't really been replicated since. Just phenomenal achievements from all of the players. Jimmy, a really important member within that team, not just as a playtesting partner, but also innovator of these decks. And yeah, just was a really important, integral piece of that and got a lot of finishes to show for it. In at number 4, we have Michael Pramawat. Again, is one of these players that is been around for ages and would probably be higher up on this list if we were looking at an all-time snapshot rather than just the modern era. But that's not to say that he's not still one of the top players in this game with 6,016 modern era CP, 320 limitless points, and modern era earnings of $41,500. Has a ton of achievements. Before this, of course, at the World Championships with a second place finish. But we are looking today at the modern era, where he was the first winner of any international championships with Yveltal Garbodor in London, then got a first place finish with Vespi sort of Toolbox in Madison 2017. Also in 2017, managed to get a Night March victory. Once again, coming back to the London Internats, was able to get a top 32 place finish with Guardi GX. As well as a top 4 finish with Night March. Once again, looks like he has one of his favourite decks in the expanded format there. Got a first place with Zoro Rock in Memphis 2017. In Sydney Internationals, top 32 finish with Buzzrock. Top 32 finish in Sao Paulo Internats with Espeon Garb. Then a top 32 finish in the NAIC with Buzzrock. Top 32 finish once again with Zoro with Oranguru, so a Zoro Rock control style variant. Was able to get a lovely top 4 with Reshizard. in 2019, as well as a second place finish with Pidgeotto Control in Portland, as well as a very recent top 8 placement, I guess you could say, in the London Open, which was, you know, a large-scale tournament, and this was the first showing of a quad DTE-based build of Mew, which again points to Pramawat's ingenuity and deck-building prowess. Has always been creative with deck building. You can see there's a lot of internationals on here and not so many regional placements, and I think this is really just a nod to how Pram now looks at the game. I think dedicating more time to internats than regionals these days, because he's pretty much been there, done that, has been within the game for just so long now that oftentimes can be turning up to events with possibly not the best preparation that he used to put into the game, but still has just the pedigree to go deep into these tournaments and still do really well once they get their full understanding of the deck. And there's no harm in just focusing on the biggest tournaments of the year. It seems to be serving Pram very well. In number 3, we have Caleb Gedemer with 6,233 Modern Era CP, Limitless points of 387, and Modern Era earnings of $32,750. Again, we have a huge string of placements here. Caleb also part of that Team DDG, now playing under Team Rare Candy. But yeah, just a huge slew of placements here. We have the standouts of a top 16 with Espeon Garb here, top 4. In Fort Wayne with the Rainbow Force Xerneas, of all things. Unfortunately, not the Xerneas break that I was hoping it would be when I reminded myself of his placement back in the day. A first place SPE with Zoroark, and then also a top 8 placement still playing the same deck in Sao Paulo for the Internats. A top 8 placement in Madison with Buzzrock, and then a Buzzgarb regional win in Philadelphia 2018. A top 8 placement with that Zoro Control, Zoro Lock style deck in November 2018. A second place finish with the Toad Zoro in Dallas, as well as once again playing that Zoro Control style deck. And then back to the Toad Zoroark in Daytona. So you can really see that Caleb at that point was just so locked in, so laser focused into playing Zoro plus controlling things. This was going between standard and expanded, standard then back to expanded, playing the same 2 decks twice in a row with insane accomplishments. A top 8 into a second, into a first, into a first. That's like, once again, just an insane achievement when you lock in to 2 decks from 2 different formats and are still able to play them both so well. In 2022 as well, the accomplishments haven't really slowed down for him. A top 8 placement recently with Regigigas, as well as a top 4 placement with good old Lost Box. This was, I believe, the Kyogre variant. So yeah, Caleb, again, back at it, back playing under a new team banner, but doesn't really change the outcome of these results. In at number 2, we have Danny Altavilla with 6,680 Modern Era CP, Limitless points of 407, Modern Era earnings of 52,750, and I've had to make space for the Modern Era career highlights because there are just so many on here. It's just too many to really count. You can see just so many first and second place finishes. At this point, I'm just going to start cherry picking some because it's otherwise me just reading the same thing you are. A first place finish with Foxy Dramper. You can see a few tournaments here, including a top 32 placement at NAIC with the deck. So seem to have locked into that sort of Foxy Dramper style archetype, trying to be a bit of a counter to Dramper Garb. Very cool and solid deck. A regional win down here with Buzzrock, not to mention playing Dramper Garb to a top 32 placement at Worlds 2017. A regional win with Malamar, of all things, in Memphis 2018. The Internats win in Sao Paulo with that Zoro controlling style archetype. You'll notice a number of the players were playing Zoro Control, all to very high placements, and the whole team brought it. The whole team did extremely well with that deck, Danny being the overall and eventual winner. Another Internat's top 8, this time with Zapdos Jirachi, sort of Zap Beast style deck in February 19. And as we go down, really impressive again, regional second and third place finishes, but in Worlds a top 32 placement with, again, Pidgeotto Control. This was the first time it was really brought to the tables. There were new cards coming out in the set that really allowed Pidgeotto Control to be a deck, the likes of Chip Chip Isaac, the likes of Reset Stampool coming out from the set, which sort of allowed this to be a thing, or really the amalgamation of cards to finally come together to make this work. A really amazing control deck, not just getting that top 32 placement, but also bringing it back with a third place finish in Portland. Between that, there was a Mewtwo first place as well as an SPE first place with Mewtwo with Malamar, the sort of hand disruption, hand lock style combo in February 2020, as well as a recent Melbourne top 16 placement with Mali as well. So again, was once part of the team DDG, now flying under his own flag that little bit, but still doing really great things with all sorts of different decks. Again, just one of the best pilots of pretty much anything. He can put his hand to anything. He doesn't really lock into any one deck. He'll play anything that he thinks gives him the best chance to win a tournament, and there's no shame in that. In at first place then, we have Azul, Garcia, Giego. You can check out his YouTube channel as well as the podcast that he's involved in. Modern Era CP of 7,330, lifetime limitless points of 552, and Modern Era earnings of 72.5k. Again, I've had to shrink everything down just to fit this all in. It really is taking up the entire screen with accomplishments. Azul, just a phenomenal player. And thanks to him making content, you can hear so much about his thought process as he navigates games and thinks about the metagame. And it's really great to hear how he thinks about tournament structures and all this other stuff to give himself the best chance to win. And you can still follow along his journey throughout the seasons, which is impeccable. Let's have a look at some highlights then. Some big regional wins in Orlando with Yveltal Garbodor, a regional win with Lurantis Plume, when I thought this deck was completely, like, just a random tangent. I thought this deck never actually got any achievements, because I was actually super hyped on this, and I thought it flopped, but it actually did get a regional win, which is cool to see. Another regional win here with Night March, which is incredible. A second place with Golly Garb, carried on playing lots of Garbodor variants. Second place finish at Sao Paulo Internats with Buzzrock, where it came down to a pretty fortuitous end for his opponent to take the win instead. A top 32 placement at the World Championships 2018 with Zorogarb. A top 16 placement at Melbourne with Zapdos Beasts. A second place regional finish in Greensboro with Archie Stoice in Expanded. A top 32 placement in Berlin with Pika Rom. A second place finish in Madison with Reshizard. A first place here with Mewtwo. A first place at the third Players' Cup, this time with Urshifu, with Jirachi and Dedenne, and all these draw-based builds, not quite having the Inteleon engine at his disposal just yet, just a more sort of tempo-y build of the deck. An NAIC first place in 2022 with Arc Flying Pikachu, which then, of course, led the way for it to win the World Championships and kind of brought this deck to light in many respects. Actually, at that Worlds, he did manage a top 32 placement with Ice Rider Palkia, and even this season is continuing to do very well with a top 4 finish with Reggie's, as well as a recent top 16 placement at the Sao Paulo Internats. The LAIC with the Lost Box Kyogre variant as well. So that wraps everything up. Here's a nice screenshot if you want to take that to have a look once again at the top 30. On the left-hand side with the crowns, those are for international victories. And on the right-hand side, it's going to be regional, SPE, and online tournament wins. So, yeah, all pretty good stuff there. You can see the totals. You'll notice every now and then there are some spots here where there are players who didn't quite age up in time. So again, really impressive that they could be on the list, and that's with a bit of a handicap on their end. Once again, there are flaws with this methodology. I'm sure there will be players missing from this top 30 that you would expect to get there in a few years' time and pretty much are at the top of their game in the modern era and would chance their arm against any of the players on this list. That's not what this is about, though. This is just the championship points. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll be back with another one tomorrow. Cheers.